Order the regular
My dog
monthly meeting of the
did not do well.
Planning Board.
She's not.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hazel Nurse, the Chairman of the Board. To my left is John Bezzosi, on my right is Mark Silverberg, on my far right is Peter Bouchard, and on my far left is Jenny Gingras, our town planner. We have a fairly short agenda tonight, so I think I will get right to it since we just have one application we really need to discuss. The rest are continuations. So let's just start with the continuation of the public hearing for site plan application for 101-105 Flanders Road.
Hazel, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to remember to say this meeting's being recorded.
Oh, I'm sorry. And this meeting is being recorded by Westborough TV. Thank you. Let's see, continuation of the hearing of site plan application 101-105 Flanders Road. They have requested a continuation to our next meeting, which is the 21st of May. I believe the problem is they're going to Conservation Committee because they need to discuss further flagging of the wetlands.
That is correct.
Are there any questions on this continuation? I assume we received a letter which will be part of the file. Could I have a motion to continue?
I move that the planning board continue the hearing for the application of 101-105 Flanders Road until May 21st, 2024 hearing date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board? Jenny? All in favor? That's 4-0. Second matter is a continuation of the public hearing for special permit site plan review application for 18 and 31 Lyman Street. There also has been a request there. I believe the reason is that they are in the process still of looking at peer review and other comments from town departments.
That's correct.
Is there any questions or comments from board members on this? Could I have a motion to continue this matter to
I move
the first?
I move that the planning board continue the hearing for the application for 18 and 30 Lyman Street until May 21st, 2024 hearing date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ready to vote? All in favor? All right, this matter will be continued. Our third matter is a de minimis modification to special permit DPOD number 2012-1 at 22 South Street. And the applicant, I believe, is here. Mr. Kelly?
Hi.
Would you join us and introduce yourself
Sparrow Kelly.
and tell us why you're here?
I'm here to request for the remaining front part of my current office to be converted into a one-bedroom apartment. And I'd like to get that special permit amended to be able to do that.
For a de minimis change?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Questions from the board on this?
Yeah, I think is the biggest question was whether, there was enough sewer and the DPW answered that, right? So they already have a sewer allocation for that residential unit.
Yeah.
I do think that last condition, the affordable housing component, shall not apply to the proposed project because of the 5 or more units. We have to look at changing that permanently. I don't think we should. Are we going to change that bylaw, or are we going to?
Yes, I currently have an inclusionary zoning bylaw draft that we're reviewing as a working group.
Okay, great.
Which seems the logical next step on this, I would say.
I agree.
But I'm, quite frankly, I'm pleased that we're going to have another rentable unit in the downtown area. So I think it's great that you're converting over.
Thank you.
All right. Could I have a motion then to approve this as a de minimis change in the original special permit?
I move that the planning board grant the request for a de minimis modification to the downtown planning overlay special permit dated December 2020 for 22 South Street with the following conditions. Number one, all terms and conditions of the original site plan decision dated December 2020 and all subsequent modifications unless modified herein shall be brought forward in full force and effect with this modification. Two, the applicant shall record this decision with the Worcester Registry of Deeds before the commencement of authorized site activity and shall submit proof of recording to the planning board. Failure to record this decision before the commencement of authorized site activity shall result in the rescission of the decision. Three, this approval is limited to the modifications as shown on the site plan entitled 22 South Street, Westborough, Mass., prepared by Spiro Kelly, dated November 30, 2021, revised February 1st, 2024. Four, the affordable housing component described in subsection 4.7F of the zoning bylaw shall not apply to the proposed project as presented. The planning board finds that subsection 4.7F of the zoning bylaw applies to proposals of 5 or more units, as is consistent with other sections of the bylaw which require affordable housing, including section 6.4D2.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly, would you like to take a look at these in case you have any problems with them?
What is that? I'm sorry.
This is the decision.
That's fine, yes.
That's
yes.
fine. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's on the-
I see it right there. Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. Hadn't realized it was up on the screen. All right, fine. So you had no questions or comments on it?
Straightforward.
Okay. Jenny, do you have any comments?
No? No comment.
Any board member have any comments or questions? You ready to vote?
It's a, yeah.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. What?
John.
John seconded, didn't you?
Yeah, I seconded.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Good luck
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
coming in. All right, that finishes the business of the meeting tonight. We'll move on from there. Jenny, you want to give us a report?
Yes, so the first thing I'll talk about is zoning revision that we're working on. The zoning group has been working on in collaboration with Sustainable Westborough, or at least the chair of the Sustainable Westborough and the sustainability coordinator. And it would amend the existing bylaw for multifamily in the highway zoning business district. And it would revise it to apply to any development. And what it would do is allow by special permit a developer to obtain a reduction in the open space requirement, which is currently 60%, in exchange for 3 options. They could provide a payment of a fee in lieu. They could donate land to Westborough, either to be used for open space or some other town project. And then the third option would be to implement a sustainable design. So they, for example, they could do a LEED certified building, they could put solar on their roof, they could put in heat pumps, and it's based on a point system. So what we're asking before it gets to the planning board hearing stage is for you all to review it. We've also sent it out to developers in the area, architects, and others to find out what they think about it. Because the goal is we want it to be used. We don't want it to just, sit in the bylaw and not be used by developers. We've heard from them that the open space requirement is quite high, especially for the highway business zoning district. And we feel that we could exchange that for other benefits to the town.
I commend you on the work that's been put into this. It really, you've done a super job on it. I do have some questions, but I'll hold them and see if there are any other members of the board that have some comments or questions at this stage.
Not at this stage.
No, not yet. I'd like to review it.
John? I think my only problem with it is that the point system, which I understand, the forward to that confused me. So it isn't like I rewrote it or looked at it, but I just found it quite confusing, the description of how these points would work and what the point chart was. So that was, everything else was fine, but I got very confused when I read the introduction to that. You set up the points in a good way, but the forward, when you discuss about it, I found confusing.
Okay, yeah, that's good feedback. We don't want it to be confusing.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we can get a little too wordy, for example, and
Yeah, that was one thing, is I thought it probably should be shorter and a little more to the point.
okay.
I will look at it again myself, but that was my initial feeling about reading it.
Thank you.
Okay.
What's the green revenue account?
So it has not been created yet, so that's something that we'll need to work on, and we're still working on the parameters around it. But I did include towards the end of there, it does suggest some projects it could be used for. So under Mass General Law, they do have a new section of, I'm blanking on the section, it's chapter 44, I think it's section 53K. It is referenced in there where the select board can now create a revenue account and can spend out of it without going to town meeting. So you would see typically a revolving fund or other types of funds. They would have to go through town meeting to be spent out of. But they've amended Mass General Law so that the select board can create a specific account. Another example of what this could be used for is for affordable housing. So if we had an account, aside from not thinking about the Affordable Housing Trust, but if we had an account dedicated for affordable housing, money could go in there and then the select board could spend right out of it, with a vote, of course. But it does not have to go through town meeting for appropriation.
Is it better? I think anytime we can streamline for projects will make a huge difference. I think this is one of the problems people that develop here have always had, is the length of time. Mark?
Yeah, I just honestly just skimmed it, Jenny, so if you want, I can put my notes in, but just two things. The scope and authority, we have two sections. One allows us to waive dimensional standards, parking standards, and sign requirements. There's no criteria. For example, I thought that in order to get those waived, there was going to be some type of public benefit or increased green requirements for that as well. That there was and it seems like that's just at our discretion to improve the project, but it doesn't necessarily spell out to a developer that we're expecting something, some type of mitigation or something in return for waiving those requirements from what's in the base zoning. And then second of all, what is the open space in highway business? The requirement is 40%, right?
The open space is 60%.
I thought it was 40% open space, 60% coverage.
Double check it.
Okay,
but I added it. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 60/40 the other way, and I've been on the board a long time, so
I will definitely double check that.
yeah, that would be important, because
Yeah, that's an
the point
important part of
system
our calculation.
doesn't make a lot of sense then.
Yes, I understand about the waiver part. So that is taken from the existing section 6.2 for multifamily, and there's not a lot of parameters around it. The finding is if the planning board feels like it will result in a better project. I did add in some additional findings in here to clarify what that could mean on a better project. But I think that's something for this board to think about. What would justify you waiving, some of the setback requirements? Just something to think about, or potentially eliminate. But they would still be through a special permit
Yeah, I don't want a
process.
developer to think that they can just buy their way into, you know, into getting some kind of relief. But I also think if it's going to make the project better, and we can demonstrate that's a good authority for us to have.
Definitely nice to have that flexibility, that, you know, the dimensional requirements might not work for every lot shape or size or project.
I think that was really one of the huge benefits of these changes, is flexibility that allows them. I think that's the complaints we've had from developers, is the lack of flexibility. And I think it's incumbent upon us to be able to work both with the town and the developers so that we can help them develop in this town in the way we would like them to, but at the same time, showing that, you know, we've made an effort to include them in the community.
And Jenny, now that I think of it, I think you're right, it is 60% open space. I'm thinking of the industrial overlay where we relax it to 40.
Yes.
We have too many.
Right, too many districts.
It would be nice to streamline all of it, but we'll get there.
It would
Next year, Mark. Go through that next year.
Well, you're on the committee, John.
I know.
Get cracking.
One thing at a time.
No, that counts.
Yeah.
All right. Jenny, next. Anything else?
And then I'll just mention again the inclusionary zoning bylaw. We have a meeting as the zoning working group, I think, next week, to talk about that. So basically what that will do is take all of the existing affordable housing requirements, which are kind of scattered in the bylaw, and put them into one bylaw so the requirements are clear. There's a minimum unit count, which would be the 5 or more, and it explains the options in there. It will also clarify what the payment of a fee in lieu is, which right now it does not have any sort of calculation formula. So what I'm suggesting is using the HUD income limits, taking what towns I've found in my research have done is they take the HUD income limits. So for a family of 4, if the HUD income limit is $90,000, multiply that by 2, and that's your payment of a fee in lieu instead of building one unit. So it'd be $180,000 you give to the town instead of building one unit.
I don't know how we tie that fee to the income. I would think it would be related to the cost of replacing that unit.
I think it's usually done on income, though, isn't it, Jenny? I mean, that was my.
In most towns, I've found that they've been tying it to income because that number changes and fluctuates, and it's difficult to put it on the cost of building the unit because that is constantly changing, and there's not really a table to understand that cost.
You know, I'm fine with that as long as there's a formula. I don't want to get into a lot of negotiations on it. I just want it
Exactly,
to
and
be there in print.
yeah, and definitely we can discuss, you know, the different options, but that's just one that I came up with, a formula to be able to calculate what that fee will be, and it seems to be consistent. Ideally, we want them to build the unit. You know, we don't want to have the money so that we have to build it.
Well, that's the question, though, is that number high enough to incentivize?
I mean,
Well,
I think it could be. The other part of it is that, so you require, right now how it's drafted is that you're required to trigger the inclusionary zoning, it's 5 or more units, but you can only do a payment of a fee in lieu if it's under 10 units. So if you're in that spot between 5 and 10, then you can pay your way completely out of it. But if it's over 10, then you have to do the 20%, or you can reduce it down to the 10% with that payment. So you always have, if you're above 10 units,
And where
you
does
have
that
to
payment
build
go?
it.
Where does that payment go?
That's what we need to discuss, whether it would
Let
Go
me
to the
just ask you-
Affordable Housing Trust, the Senior Tax Fund. Are there a few options?
Probably the Affordable Housing Trust. Yeah, we have ways to spend it, I'm sure, so.
There's many options. You could even think
even
about putting it
split it.
into some like infrastructure improvement fund because of the housing. It just needs to be related to the impact of the housing.
Yeah, I'm just curious, when I think of the Westborough Village is the one I'm thinking of, where we had affordable units and market rate units, and they were very similar. And I feel like the difference in sale price was quite a bit more than 180,000. So I'm just not clear, like, if a developer can pay 180,000 and then sell a unit for 400,000 more than they could have prior, is that enough incentive to say, you know, I would think they would just pay the fee in lieu and not build them affordable. And I'm not sure that's what we want.
Yeah, but we still have to have a rational basis on which we make a decision on this. I mean, in other words, any formula that we come up with has to kind of have a rational basis, or we're going to run into real problems legally on this kind of thing. So that's all I'm
It's not
saying.
so, I completely agree with that. I just don't know if the multiplier should be 2 times.
It
Should
could
it
be
be 3
more.
times the
It could be
median?
more.
Right, like
can look
that,
at
that's
that,
the only
yeah.
question I have, is
Yeah.
what is a significant, amount of money to make a developer say, well, I'm just going to build the affordable units because I don't want it?
Well, the thing about that is that you also have to think about, so under 10 units, it's hard to make the numbers work for a developer. So they're most often going to say, I'm going to pay my way out of it. If it's above 10 units, what we're proposing is you have to build affordable housing at least 10%. If you want to do, you can do 20, which is required, but you can go down to 10. Now, we could decide in this bylaw, the planning board could decide, let's just make it 20%, if you're above 10 units.
I mean,
So I think it's just
lean-
things we need to
yeah,
discuss.
I mean, I lean more towards a higher percentage in the sense that I don't like going all the way down to the 10%. So that's bothered me all the way along. But that's kind of my feeling about it, is that I'd like to see a higher percentage in there. But, I mean, this is all up for discussion.
Yeah, I don't mind going under 20 on projects, but I don't like going all the way down to 10.
that's
Yeah,
exactly
I agree with that.
But we don't have to go down to 10.
No.
We can say 10, but then we can negotiate, like, I think we should kind of keep it a little more flexible, because see what they're going to propose to us. If we just limit to, it has to be above 18, or whatever we say, then we're,
Well, we could make it, an incremental thing. So to go down to 15%, they pay 2 times the median income. To go down to 10%, they have to pay 3 times, or whatever the number is, I don't know, right?
Yeah, I don't want to be in a situation where they know about the 10% figure, in other words, and so when they come in, they say, okay, they build that into their whole thing, and they say, okay, we know we can get down as low as 10. So I don't want them to have the option to know that that's the low figure on it. So I think that's the part that, I mean, we can do a sliding scale based on the size of the development. I mean, there are lots of ways you can do this, but as I said, I never like to have a high and then a low and then give people the option to, because most people are going to get down to the low.
well, there has to be a financial number at the low end that's going to not entice people to go, do a workaround.
Yeah.
So I actually look at it a different way. I want to protect our SHI, obviously, right? But I feel like the affordable units have a very limited market. And I'm not sure there's many people in Westborough, maybe rental units they could afford, but I don't think there's many people in Westborough who would qualify to buy an affordable unit. Your family of 4 income is what, 90,000?
That's not the number. I was using it just as an example.
Well, I think
it's higher than
I
that.
think the single person is like 59. So if you're living in Westborough on 59,000, I don't think you can, I mean, your credit's probably shot, or if you are a senior citizen, you probably own your home, and you sell your home, make more than, I think it's 75,000 in assets, you won't qualify for the affordable anyway. So basically, any senior citizen who wants to stay in town, but wants to sell their home and, cash in on all the equity that they have, there's no incentive to do that. There's Westborough, so I'm not against the affordable housing component because I think it's important, but I feel like we need more of that gap housing that, somebody who's 25 and making entry-level income can afford to live in this town and,
Well, the housing production plan will be done by the end of June, and that will give us some more insight into, the affordability need in Westborough. And we also have the economic feasibility analysis that was done, which helps kind of guide that based on the market, we can keep it at 20%. It just depends on the type of construction. That's basically what that said, is that, if it's under 4 stories and stick-built construction, 20% is comfortable for developers. If it's above 10 units, that's what that found. So, and then the housing production plan will give us that data to understand the need in Westborough.
But I brought this up even with the Lyman Street project. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Good.
All right. I don't necessarily think all of these units should be 80% of median income. I think there should be a mixture of those, so that somebody who's making 120% of median income has an option
Yeah.
that may be more affordable.
You can absolutely do that. It just wouldn't count towards your SHI. To count towards your SHI, it can't be more than 80% AMI. But you can offer that type of housing, and many towns do, because it is an important missing area. But you just need to understand that it won't be part of the SHI, which,
So that's why having the flexibility of going down to 10% is important. Developers, right? Is that
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The developers they're just it's either gonna work and pencil out, or it won't, and there won't be any projects in town.
I'm more concerned with making sure that we get local preference, that Westborough people who want to live there have an option, that they're not put on a waiting list in favor of somebody from another town who's never lived in this town. And again,
Yeah, no,
I don't want to seem like isolationists, but I just feel like, people who pay taxes in this town deserve the first opportunity.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
I have one question. When we're looking at the SHI and you're looking at income figures, are the income figures only, are we in the Worcester catchment, or are we individual in our town?
No, it's Worcester County.
That's what I was afraid of, because that's something that we get caught in the fact that since we are a town that has much higher house prices than and higher income than a lot of other towns, then, essentially we get penalized for the fact, if you're looking at those figures, we get penalized for the fact that we're a wealthier town in Worcester County as compared to lots of other towns. So that's something
Much we can do about that.
No, there isn't, but it's something we have to keep in mind, I think, when looking at this. And that's one of the things that often happens if you happen to be in a town, in a catchment area which has a large city. You may get caught on this.
I have no problem creating affordable housing. I just want it to be affordable housing for,
Well, that's what I mean.
that
is-
people in Westborough
yeah.
can actually access.
Right, exactly,
And not
yeah.
just make affordable housing that's, great for somebody in Worcester who wants to move for Westborough, but not useful at all for anybody who lives in Westborough. So if we have an affordable housing trust, I think that's more their mandate, but it is part of our, oversight on this, so.
And we will be working with them more once we have the assistant planner, because,
Right.
you know, Affordable Housing Trust is providing the salary for part of that.
That's a great point,
So
Jenny.
they will be working directly with the Affordable Housing Trust and working on all of these things. The local preference, you know, we can absolutely do that. The planning board can make that a condition of any affordable housing that comes in. And then it turns into the marketing plan that the developer does when they submit the units to EOHLC. They have to provide a marketing plan, and that marketing plan needs to say there's a local preference.
Yeah, which is what you're looking
So
for. Thank you.
any other questions on that? And then I just want to talk about the downtown plan. Okay. And then the 2 letters of support there. So the downtown plan, we have our second public meeting on June 5th at 6 p.m. in this room, Great Hall in the Forbes Municipal Building. And again, it's going to basically the consultants are going to talk about the outcome of the first public meeting, all of the great information we gathered from the public, and then the results of the scavenger hunt, which we ended up getting about 100 participants from. So that was great that we got that bump after the last meeting. It's going to be a very interesting meeting. They have a few different scenarios for the Rotary. They're going to show the traffic flows on there and give a couple build-out scenarios of the downtown and just some zoning recommendations. So please be there. It's really going to be a great meeting. And again, there will be food. So if that's your reason for coming, that's fine, as long as you're there.
I'm sorry, what day again?
June 5th at 6 p.m. It's a Wednesday. So we're really excited about that and to see the outcome. So I'll talk about the 2 letters of support that we handed out for everyone. So we have been working as town staff to decide what grants we're going to apply for under the One Stop for Growth program under EOHLC. To remind the board, this One Stop for Growth program is an umbrella for many different grant programs, including MassWorks, Housing Choice Program, and many others. So we found that there's 2 priority projects based on the action items in the master plan, and then just priorities because of things happening in Westborough. So the first one I'll talk about is the Downtown Rotary Improvements Project. So knowing that we're doing the downtown plan that will be finished by the time we submit this, I'll have a draft to submit with this. One of the findings so far is that the Rotary needs a lot of work. The pedestrian infrastructure needs a lot of work, just to make it safer.
Right.
And
Shocker.
Shocker, right?
Right.
But before we jump in and hire an engineer to do this full design of the Rotary, we feel like it's better to do some more public outreach, have some more information sessions, maybe do some build-out scenarios, block off a portion of one of the milk streets and, see what happens when we make it one way. These are just ideas. I don't know that they're actually going to do this.
Crazy talk.
So again, I don't know that they're actually going to do that, but it's just an example of figuring out ways that will actually work. And so this grant would allow us to hire an engineering firm to do that. We would have more public outreach sessions, the build-out scenarios, and then at the end, it would have a solution that everyone is comfortable with. And then the next step would be to either apply for another grant to hire someone or trash the whole thing, I don't know.
So can I just lower your expectations when you say everyone is comfortable with? We're not going to make everybody happy with
No.
this. At some point, we have to make some decisions and take action instead of studying everything and studying it and then studying it some more. So I don't object to this because we need a specialist to come in and, you know, that kind of expertise to find a solution that works. And, you know, you gave an example of some experimentation that we could do to, you know, like, I don't want to implement something and then find out it doesn't work. That's no good. But I think the sentiment that I get from a lot of people is, let's stop talking about it and get something done. So I don't want to end up here 3 years from now without, you know, any kind of progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will allow us to give a more focus on the actual infrastructure out there, and the end result will be one concept plan. So the downtown plan is going to give us a few options and, you know, the pros and cons of each. But we want to see one concept plan that we can use to apply for a grant to do the full engineering of whatever it is.
No, it makes perfect sense, obviously, because we need coordination in working on anything to do with the downtown area. And, you know, maybe we need some creative ideas, that we need someone to come and say, well, you know, you thought about this, you thought about that. So, as Mark said, we know everybody's not going to be happy, but we've got to come up with something at least to make a start and try something.
Well, we do have to have a concrete plan so that we stick to it, because we can't waffle back and forth and say, well, we might do this, we might do that. Like, there's going to be some bumps in the road, I guess is the word, you know, the rotary. Like, I do think there's going to be some hard times when the actual infrastructure is being constructed, and but we need to have an idea that when it's done, it's going to be drastically improved. And
Right.
and I think that's what we have to remain, you know, have a focus when we start, and keep that in focus throughout the process, whether it does take, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an overnight change. We're looking at years to get this done, probably.
Well, I think
Start
it's got to
somewhere.
work in concert with seeing if there's any possibility we can get that, get the Harveys to use that opening, have them open under the Mass Pike there. That would make a huge difference in how this were formulated. And I think that's one of the main comments from people in town, is the danger from the trucks that are coming through there. So,
Yeah, and I know people
you
in
the
town are
first
working
thing
on that.
yeah.
So you know,
Yeah, I mean, you know, anything that can be done that can get that moving forward.
it's a federally controlled, it's a federal regulation, so
Yeah.
it's going to take a long time to go up those ladders, and we may end up, you know, coming back down the ladder with no positive
Right,
results.
true, but we've
But
gotta
you would
make-
think with electronic tolling that this would be the time to take another look at it.
So do you want me to go talk about the next one before you take a vote on whether to support it, or?
Oh,
We
what
want a
you
time.
want, you would like support for the two letters that are going out on the downtown rotary improvement and the sewer line rehabilitation?
Yes. So do you want to take one vote, or do you want to take them separately?
Let's take them separately. 'Cause
Okay.
I think they're quite separate. Are there any questions, and has everybody had a chance to take a look at the letter? Any comments or questions on that? Could I have a motion then to approve the letter in support of the downtown rotary improvement project?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Letter one.
So the second project, which would fall under a different grant category under the same program, One Stop for Growth, so they're not competing, would be the sewer line rehabilitation. So the board may know that in the downtown area, there has been some recent work done on the sewer pipes that's been ongoing. So that is definitely a priority for us, to work on this 80-plus-year-old clay sewer pipe that's in downtown, and to allow that to continue, to get funding for that to continue, we would want to apply for a grant for that work. It's over $1 million that's needed to complete that work. And it would definitely assist us, especially with the sewer moratorium going on.
So they come out of two separate funds, is what you're telling us? Sewer and one in the downtown area. That was, I had no questions on it. I think obviously we want to support something. It's primary in the downtown area that needs to be taken care of.
So Jenny, am I wrong? It's my understanding that one of the reasons that we have a moratorium and we're at capacity is because our infrastructure downtown needs improvements to, we're losing capacity just because some of the pipes are not, are leaking or,
That's one of the theories, yes.
okay.
And that was
The
original,
study hasn't come back yet, right?
It has not, no.
and that was the original questions we had when we were doing the new project up on,
I was gonna say that the
the
more,
bio
Where
thing.
BJ's is,
Yeah,
I was gonna say that I think the moratorium was a little premature.
and I agree with you.
I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't run by the planning board.
No, I quite frankly was very surprised about it, and I was sorry that I felt the planning board should have had some input on this. And also, I guess my feeling was I felt very strongly we should wait till we got the report. I don't understand why this decision was made prior to the time the report came out, which was due out in June.
I found it interesting because I thought there was a moratorium long before there was a moratorium. So, I mean, even at that meeting, I said, what are you going to do about the moratorium? And that was before I knew it was going to the select board for a vote on the moratorium. So again, I don't know what else to say. I mean, we need to solve our sewer problem, and it's more than just this moratorium. It's about, how do we solve it for the next 50, 100 years? And there's no easy solution.
No, there certainly isn't, and I think one of the things that I was kind of waiting for was to see on whether there was some way that the report gave us some idea of what we're losing presently through our sewer pipes that we have, which is one of the reasons that we were supposed to do that. And so that I was kind of waiting for the facts and figures before I thought we were going to move to a moratorium, so that we'd have some idea of a plan, instead of just putting a date in, but a plan on how this was going to move forward and what was going to be done about it. So I think just putting a blanket moratorium at this particular time without the facts and figures and some idea of what kind of a plan we would have to move forward on this, quite frankly, didn't make sense to me. But at the moment, that's where we are, and hopefully the material will get the report next month and then go from there. And then, I'm not sure how much of a role that the planning board will have in this, but I assume, Jenny, that you will be involved in meetings on this.
That is the
and
plan.
take back information back and forth so that we do have some sort of a voice in what's going on there. Because what happens is that the developers see us individually as planning board members, and, the first thing they say to us was, what is this moratorium and why was it done? And it's kind of caught us all, or it certainly caught me off guard when I've had people ask me about it, because I don't have any background on it. All I know is that they voted to do this. So that's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment on it. But as far as the letter goes, obviously, we want to put any grant request that we possibly can make into the pipeline now to begin to work on them, because there probably will be more that we will wish to do.
Right. They do know that they've been working on it, in the downtown. They know that that's an issue with the existing pipes. So this would just allow that work to continue.
All right, are there any other comments? If not, could I have a motion to approve the letter, which I think you've all seen?
I'll make a motion that we support the grant application for the sewer line rehabilitation project and send this letter to the community.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor? Thank you, Jenny, for drafting these letters. Anything else from you?
I don't think so. That was a lot.
Yes. Board members on town committees. I attended the training session for the Community Preservation Committee, so we're beginning to work on that. And the training session was done really well, I have to tell you. I was extremely impressed with Stuart, who did it for us. Very good job. Unfortunately, I came away feeling overwhelmed, but he said it'll get better. So I think it's a matter of setting up structure and then moving from there on the things that we need to do. So we'll have our first meeting really to talk about how we're going to move forward in the beginning of June. We're very lucky as a community that we have just done a master plan, that we have done the survey from the senior citizen. We have information on housing from the Housing Trust. And so we're well ahead of a lot of communities that adopted community preservation without this kind of foundation, which we already have. So anyway, I'll keep you apprised of what goes on. Any other committee meetings people have attended? Then we have minutes. I took a look at the minutes. I had a minor grammatical changes, which I will give to Kristen. Has everyone had a chance to review their 4 meetings, the 27th of February, the 19th of March, the 4th of April, and the 16th of April? Could I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor? Thank you. That's done. I had nothing else on the agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring forward tonight?
I just want to mention about the upcoming meeting dates, since we will be going
sorry.
into summer. I know vacations are going to happen. I actually will not be at the June 18th meeting. I'll be in Florida, so.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So we just want to know in advance if anybody has a vacation on a meeting date. You know, we can kind of drive any applications if necessary to be pushed to another one.
Yeah, why doesn't everybody take a look at the their calendars and the meeting dates, just to see whether we're going to need to switch any.
Yeah, I have no vacation. I just always have baseball all summer, but I'll make that work. Yeah,
So our next meeting is May 21st, right?
yeah.
Yes. So everyone else, take a look. I'll be around this summer. I don't expect to have a problem. Sort of tied to the farm. So anyway, that should be fine. All right. Could I have nothing else? Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a second? All in favor? Thank you all for coming.